This is Morning Express. It's now 10 minutes after 7 and it's time for The Way It Is. I'll go straight to introducing our panel this morning. To my extreme left, we have Senator Omar Hassan, who is Senator Mombasa County, who is also the Secretary General for Wiper Party. Good to have you, sir.
Good afternoon.
And I hope you had a good weekend.
Yeah, the weekend was great. I think I've been about attending cleanups as usual, doing last minute touches. You know, we're having Ramadan. Yes. Starting on the 6th of this month of June. Also attended a couple of activities that were organized by some groups, including a forum on to deal with radicalization, organized by Haki Africa under the leadership of Hussein Khalid. Extremely extraordinary forum for high school kids in terms of interrogating some of the elements of radicalization. And it comes hot on the heels after four Kenyans have been jailed for life in Uganda over the 210 bombings of Kampala, and two of them being given 50-year sentence for that, and 3 were acquitted though, but then rearrested. So we asked the Ugandan authorities that once people have gone through the full process of the law, it is only fair that they now let them go.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
All right, we also have Frank Mukwanja, who's a current affairs commentator. We already have you, and good to have you as well. And last but not least, Ambrose Weda, who's a lawyer. I hope you also had a good weekend and good morning.
Yes, I had a nice weekend. Yesterday I was preaching in Athi River.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and it was good.
Wonderful. All right, let's move to matters at hand. And the way it is, of course, looking at the headlines, clash as Uhuru Park declared no-go zone, Raila Court's plan for Madaraka Day. Let's start, first of all, with what some of the politicians had to say. And this is in regards to a parallel gathering that is being organized to take place on the 1st, which is going to be Madaraka Day. But let's start off with some of what had been said.
Nairobi atuanze kushindana. We only have one head of state. Kwa hivyo wakileta nyokonyoko, sisi wengine hatutaenda Nakuru. We will be Nairobi tukabiliane na wao omundu kumundu.
Is only available for CORD and all the CORD principles, that is Prime Minister Raila Amolo Odinga, His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka, and Senator Wetangula will lead Kenyans in celebrations of Madaraka Day.
All right, so let me start with you, Frank. And given the political temperature that we already have, and the fact that we're just coming from, the IEBC protests that have been taking place every Monday, they've been suspended temporarily for a while, subject to whether there's going to be dialogue. And looking at even the language that is being used by our politicians, what are your comments on what is going on right now?
I think we have generally agreed as Kenyans that the matter of Kenyans assembling peacefully to state what they wish to is not an issue at all. The process of how they should do that is very clear, and I think to the level that Uhuru Park has to be used for the CORD meeting on 1st of June is an issue that we have to ask clear questions to the county government of Nairobi. Who exactly was the first to reserve the ground? Because one party has a letter from the chief, the county secretary, going down to the director of environment to give CORD an opportunity to use the ground. The other one is the evangelist Ngunjiri, who has a receipt for having paid. So can the county government be very clear on who has the legitimate authority to use the ground? Now, once we have that hurdle cleared, we go to the next level. The CORD coalition yesterday, for the first time, told us the reason for the meeting. That this is to preach the national unity. It's about it's talking about the truth, justice, and reconciliation that Kenyans so much require for us to have a cohesive, country. The question now that I have to the CORD coalition is: this meeting really the only available strategy avenue to be able to accomplish this plan or this objective? And that is not an easy answer to get. Now, if you look at the reasons why we have a contest, could it also be that the Jubilee coalition realizing that it wasn't enough to just say that you cannot assemble on 1st of June because it's a national holiday, have gone behind the scenes to try to bring about a contest on who has the authority to use Uhuru Park so that these blemishes continue, and as politicians cast in each other in bad light so that you can seem to be the ones causing trouble, and you can be seen to be the ones not respecting Kenyans and observing national holidays as they ought to be. So these are the issues that we have to decide. But for me, it boils down to the very basic of who has the legitimate authority to use the ground. The statements from Nkaiseri on, threatening to arrest opposition leaders and saying they have ceded too much ground in the recent past, I think it's a necessary statement. It's quite polarizing. The kind of statements by Kanini Kega are unnecessary, saying, we will bring our people to go for the prayers. I think it's all about causing problems in this country. And if you look at the rhetoric towards the 2007-2008 post-election violence, I think we Kenyans, we are trying to only learn from our successes, but best lessons really come from our failures. Okay. We failed in 2007. I even had the deputy president yesterday that yes, the elections will be free, fair and transparent, but the emphasis was on peaceful elections. So what about the credibility of the process? What about the transparency, fairness of the outcome?
Let me hear from Senator Omar Hassan on your comments regarding this particular exercise that's going to take place and the objective. Is that going to be the forum, really, that we can get truth, justice, and reconciliation?
I have known that there are no limitations into the nature and manner and time of assembly as prescribed under the Constitution. There is nothing that stops any Kenyan from having a gathering anywhere just because Madaraka Day is going on in Nakuru or at Afraha Stadium or somewhere else. And more so that if those persons are people who have an alternative agenda for this country, a distinct alternative agenda for this country. So I personally do not see what the hullabaloo is about. We did it during Moi's regime. Every other day when people were having Kenyatta Day, Jamhuri Day, people who were transforming this country were meeting in their spaces, holding Jamhuri Day celebrations or Madaraka Day celebrations, where they now articulate a genuine transformative agenda for the country. So therefore, these are people who have separate and distinct agenda for this nation, how to bring unity to this nation, how to deal with ethnicity, how to deal with corruption, how to cement a national agenda for change. And I think when Kenyans are in their living rooms, that's the best time to start to sometimes
to have that conversation.
And that's on Wednesday, which is the 1st of June.
All right, Weda?
Yeah, I think first of all, God seems to be blessing the ministry of Evangelist Gunjiri. It's given her national limelight, which she may not have been planning for.
If this didn't take place.
This didn't take place. So that's a blessing to her. Everything there is a blessing behind it. There is nothing that blocks anybody from holding their celebration in any corner. That is granted, except it depends with who. Here we have leading lights in the country. The court leader, Raila Odinga, the Kalonzo Musyoka, and Wetangula. So essentially, that is what makes it a parallel celebration. And the parallel celebration is for the country what is not wrong legally, but is bad manners. It gives bad example. It divides the country. And then the leaders are coming into it also with the same bad manners, talking in a bad way. You see Honorable Orengo saying, we will be leading, Honorable Raila will be leading celebrations at Uhuru Park. Basically meaning there's a parallel one. Kadini Kega also says we'll bring in people to counteract. Then Kaiseri also says we'll beat up people. All these are bad manners. But why are they doing this? I keep on saying the court brigade And that's where the motive comes in. The core brigade are laying a basis for gaining traction so that they have euphoria with which they'll march to next year's election hoping to win it. And being that Honorable Raila Odinga also is the lord of rallies, he cherishes big rallies. And this time, as the president tries to decentralize, occasionally go now taking the celebrations of Nakuru, next time it may be in Mombasa, they are taking that lacuna, the Nairobi one, and then they're trying to fill it.
But being a political party, there is nothing wrong with...
There's nothing wrong legally. But politically, socially, and as a nation, it is divisive. And it is the divisive nature that we are saying that a leader of Raila's caliber or of Kalonzo's caliber, it is not in the spirit of the country to behave that way. But it is in their own spirit to continue taking actions that will give them traction, for which they will generate euphoria for next year's election. But it is wrong for the country.
All right, Senator, there is an angle here which I'd like to hear your comments, and this is to do with the fact that, yes, it is a right constitutionally, but there is also responsibility. Do you feel that it is subject, or it could polarize the country, given the kind of temperature that we're in right now?
I think it's more the rhetoric. Particularly, which you're talking about, my brother, very good brother, by the way, Kanini Kega. We share a football, we were in the Bunga FC at a personal level. We were in campus together, so I relate with him at a personal level. But I think we sometimes need to be auditors of one another. I sometimes, my colleagues even from Jubilee, come in and tell me what you said yesterday was not desirable. So I'm telling him on national media that what he said was not desirable. You know, it's not that type of thing. So that's that you will say. These are the things that raise the temperatures. I don't know what one is trying to prove. I'm asking the state, what will have gone wrong sometimes to allow these demonstrations, to allow these rallies to just go ahead? You know, and then everybody somewhat, I'm related. I have a nexus of relationship. I met General Kaiseri when I was a cadet in the military. He was literally my teacher. So when I see my teacher also say things that escalate public temperatures.
And especially when you're given the responsibility of security.
I want also to tell him that it's that type of rhetoric that unnecessarily escalates. You know, many people think it is the actions of the oppositions that escalates the political temperatures. But for me, it's the reaction of government, where things are enshrined in the Constitution, legitimate and constitutional, for us to undertake with some of the activities that then you escalate. So I don't know, there's like a showdown, and so therefore Kanini, Minor Commander, and the rest of them position themselves for a showdown with the Code Coalition. That is hardly our intention. Our intention is also to ensure that these meetings take place and that the agenda is clear and succinct so that it can be heard out there. Okay. So it is not in our interest to have a clash, as you put it in the media, the clash or the parallel. It is a question of us having a forum where we can express some of the issues that genuinely concern us as a country.
There's a history, maybe just excuse me to add, that the last 3 years ever since President Uhuru came to power, Honorable Raila Odinga, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, I don't know about Wetangula, have actually failed, refused, always neglected to join the head of state in the celebrations whenever they are held. I understand that they always get their invitations, but somehow they don't. So it is here that what they are doing, the motivation is, you can see that it is not good motive. But I appeal to Honorable Raila Odinga that it is, as a senior leader, it is bad manners and it is failing in leadership. In the same breath, I appeal to the minister's guy, say, the way he talks sometimes,
very military.
It shocks me. This is not military where you say we have ceded ground. This is not Somali. This is a place where what comes out of his mouth reflects what government is saying and is giving government, our government, a bad name. I know President Uhuru doesn't talk like that. He doesn't want his ministers to talk like that. So he should change his language. If he has problems with the language, we can sit down and tell him that some of these things, you say them, look, it is not proper, it's not fair, we should not allow something like this. But now he's actually generating warlike activities. And that will attract people to Uhuru Park. People will come from Kibera and Makadara just because Kasir has announced there will be skirmishes. And that is exactly what Honorable Raila Odinga and his team wants. If you arrest Raila. That is what he was. In fact, he's praying, I don't know, but I think he's praying very hard to be arrested so that he's a hero.
Let me come to Frank. And is the government, as it were, like Omar Hassan says, literally polarizing the country? Because really there's nothing with them having the freedom to exercise their constitutional right to assemble, despite the fact that it's on the first. There's nothing wrong constitutionally and legally to do that. But now when we have language, like we have heard from Kanini Kega, language like we have heard from Kaiseri, saying that will not allow anybody to disrespect the head of state, is that literally polarizing the country?
I think there are two things here. There is the burden of leadership in terms of uniting the country, which is squarely the responsibility of the commander-in-chief and the president of the Republic of Kenya. There is the obligation and responsibility on the part of every leader, including Wakili Weda here and Senator Hassan Omar, to make sure that Kenyans are a cohesive unit. Has the president done his part in terms of really leading the country to national unity? I think there are occasions that His Excellency the President has also been very alive to the political pressures of the CORD coalition and given statements that seem also to contribute to raising, levels of political temperatures. On the other side, the CORD coalition has also not been very strategic in terms of its execution of its plans. Had they really come out last when they were calling off the Monday demonstrations, and at that juncture told us that we are going to have a rally on 1st of June, and this is our agenda, and the reservations have been done, perhaps some of these, tricks that I believe have been employed by the opponents of the CORD coalition could be already sorted out, because every Kenyan would be very clear with the issue of the agenda. The issue of the agenda by even Sunday, I think when the Prime Minister was at a church in Hassan Omar's county, he still didn't come out with that clear agenda. The words he used was wapende waspende. And later on, that is when we have heard him saying and clarifying the real reason of the political rally. So is it an afterthought? Is it an issue that was clearly planned? And I think the way CORD coalition has been operating has given a lot of fodder to the Jubilee coalition to easily, and the likes of Kanini Kega, to easily find loopholes to poke into the agenda and, say statements that are otherwise not very good. So if the CORD coalition that my good brother belongs to could be more strategic in terms of telling us what exactly it is that they plan to do, perhaps they could be able to fill these loopholes. So the burden of uniting, the burden of leadership to make sure that Kenya is united is Uhuru Kenyatta's. Is he doing it very well? I think I have questions. The responsibility of every political leader or any other leader to make sure that Kenyans are cohesive is also not being undertaken very well by all leaders that need to do it.
Coalition. Okay, I can see Senator Omar Hassan, you are smiling as though, I don't know if you're in agreement with what he says, that there is leadership gaps that we have right here, both in the opposition and the government.
Challenges are there. We need to, as a coalition, as he says, to articulate our message a lot more succinctly. And that is being done. There's a general attempt. But you realize there are challenges sometimes. And even when you state a very elaborate agenda, I'm not trying to blame the press, but the press is always interested in that place where it appears that you're going head to head. In fact, half the times, my brother, Michael, whenever I say today, I am going to talk in this manner, moderate, statesmanship, etc. I sit in the evening and watch and look for myself on KTN and other news channels. It is likely that I will not be there. By the day, I say today, I'm on his case, I'm on that guy's case, I shall receive a scoop. So I think the press has also set a tone in terms of what excites them most. And I think once, so therefore it definitely means that where the message is lost in that attempt or in that excitement to demonstrate. Like right now, I think you've mobilized for the rally sufficiently. We need to do nothing more. So based on all this, so the press has positioned it as a clash. Kanini has made it appear like it's a contest between CORD and Jubilee, and therefore we will treat it in that regard. Maina Commander is saying her own thing, and then therefore his own thing. So that is where all the time we mirror or we muddy, sometimes very innocent political agenda, a very innocent meeting, a very innocent medium or platform for communication with the kind of, rhetoric that intervenes.
Maybe moving forward, what does the government need to do? Should they just let this continue and let everybody, have a peaceful day on Wednesday?
If I was in charge, my brother looks very happy today because he distributes small checks all over where it comes from. I didn't see you distributing checks. But anyway, if I was, he'll tell us they were distributing bursary checks, small ones, 5,000, 3,000. They called the court leader there and so on. Now, if I was in charge?
I have to respond to that.
If I was in charge, it is bad manners for court to call for a rally on that day. But if I was in charge, I would give them security, let them go and talk those things. Kenyans are watching. We are all watching and seeing there are people who do not who want to cause mayhem through verbal mayhem that divide people under the guise of uniting people. But if we give them opportunity for a clash where we try to stop them, they shall have been placed exactly where they want to be. What we say in Luo, Opuk, Oluti, Pigi, the tortoise had been put in the water where it wants to go. That's where exactly Laila wants to go. He wants a situation where he's stopped from the rally, is tear gassed. Then he comes as a martyr, somebody who is suffering for the people of Kenya, and then the people rally behind. So we would give him security. And I urge Kaiseri, give him security, okay? On the question of IEBC, it is also time to say, look, what is the forum through which we are, what do you have? Let's have dialogue, then we push it to Parliament. Then Parliament look at it, okay? So that the country remains united. And somebody who has, it is upon the president, the deputy president, to protect their upcoming 2017 victory. You protect it by ensuring that it's not questioned. As at now, it appears court is angling to question that victory because they see it coming.
Okay.
So it is good that we go for peace, things that take away the carpet under the feet of court.
All right, I think let's move the conversation forward because I think we're all in agreement that it's legal, it is a constitutional right, and as a result, really it is the politicians, some of them who
But Michael, I have to respond to that thing irks me because what he just said. I have spoken every day in Mombasa County. I am invited and I do not attend these big meetings that people convene to issue bursaries as if it is a handout from their own pockets. It is done by literally all the members of parliament, at least of the National Assembly in Mombasa. The governor now has borrowed Q. He wastes 2 million shillings or so to carry adverts in the papers talking about beneficiaries. Convince poor people so that you can humiliate them. I was a beneficiary of bursaries. Never was there a day. For those of us who went to school, let's tell our politicians that never was there a day our parents were called to a showground, to a stadium, or to a political field to be given our check. Preserve our dignity, preserve the dignity of those people who do well in school but cannot afford those checks. I used to do well in school, and those who supported me purely on account of merit. I benefited from bursary schemes from the DC's office, and I benefited from help. Never was there a day I was assembled somewhere to be given 7,000 shillings. There is no honor in being poor. You try to uplift our standards. You don't try to convene us to humiliate us. They convene people from all over the county. And then they also told them, come back. And what I found extremely unacceptable is what Governor of Mombasa did to Raila Odinga. Raila is a magnanimous individual. He should not be subjected to small things of that nature. At some point, Raila has a consistency. One day Raila said, Uhuru should not be distributing title deeds. Hiyo ni kazi ya Karani. Governor Mombasa takes Raila and gets him to start giving 6,000 checks and 7,000. But it's immoral. Whichever way you look at it. You know, if you know the school of the individual, put it into the school account. Why are you politicizing this thing? It's not your magnanimity. It's not your 105 million. But you see, what is most painful is to bring those parents. You know, I have been to school.
So
unfortunately, I have been to school.
You are not part of
I was not part of it, but I've been to school. Unfortunately, quite a number of my colleagues in Mombasa have not been to school.
Small checks.
And I've been to school. It is not right to do that to parents.
Small checks. I thought even that.
And I think the issue here is not even the amount of money of checks, but the fact that you're using the poor to try and...
I agree, but two things that have come from Hassan Omar. The question I have always asked is, why is Raila Odinga able to get this advice that Hassan Omar is talking about? That's number one. Number two, it's very difficult. It's going to be very difficult to get a few more Hassan Omars who acknowledge these things. Because the problem with the politicians is they love interface with the people. And if the 3,000 shillings check is going to, you know,
bring a crowd
and make them closer to the people, they'll continue doing it. So we have to really be very tough on it and not particularly sounding as a privilege. The bursary is not a privilege. It's our taxes that you are a deserved Kenyan and the elected leader is only a facilitating agency.
You know what pains me before Weda comes in is the pain people told me about parents who are taken from all over the county
to come and be
6,000-7,000 check just because he or she cannot afford it and has a brilliant kid in school. And he knows the school. He knows the MCAs to those people. He knows how to get these checks. Why do you humiliate? Why do all these members of parliament humiliate people?
Why haven't you talked to your leaders?
I have said it. Everybody in Mombasa County knows my position. Everyone. It is not right. Then you see the CEC education and you know, an extremely intelligent guy who's declining in his moral judgment just because of small little things, puts pictures as if it's an act of magnanimity that these people are worthy of bursaries. Hundreds of thousands of bursaries are awarded in this country every day by various organizations. You never see those type of things. When you get obsessed, when you've done nothing much over 3 years, now you're getting to an election period, you get obsessed about showing little things as triumphant.
Let me tell you like this. But,
very briefly, because I want us to move to
let me just clarify. One, as a politician, when I give, and if you go to Sem, where I come from, they know that when I give, I do not announce it. I give you a check, you go to school. That is one. But this, what worries me is this tokenism. If you give somebody who cannot afford 7,000, he is not able to finish school. Let those leaders who are giving the bursaries take, if you are taken from Form 1, you are shown through up to Form 4. You better take a few people across the ocean than just giving them for show. You see the 7,000, the 3,000 that they were distributing, and I thought the court leader should have also added some money as a billionaire, should have given something also. But you get a few, you give them full scholarships, and they'll finish school. But if you distribute even 1 billion shillings kidogo, they all end up not finishing. That's very wrong.
Let's move on to something else now. And of course, in the corridors of justice, there is trouble. And let me start with you, Frank, regarding our current situation.
Trouble for who?
For Kenya. For Kenya, because really, we have 2017 coming. We already have IEBC.
I'm just joking.
We already have...
I know what you mean.
Yes. So let me start with you, Frank, on whether you feel, for instance, we are even ready for 2017 elections, given the kind of temperature that we have and the issues that we have to deal with between now and then.
First, I think the Constitution is very clear that we must have elections in August of 2017. And even if you look at the advisory by the Supreme Court moving the elections, the last elections to 2013 March, it was just one instance, and therefore it is not applicable to 2017, but there have been discussions. The most interesting thing is that I look at both sides of the political divide, and you only conclude that the stalemate that we are in was very well calculated by both sides of the coalition. The issue of the credibility of IEBC has been on the table since the 2013 elections were announced. There have been obviously attempts by the CORD coalition through a director in ODM to petition Parliament, which the Jubilee coalition aptly, kicked out that petition through their numeric strength in Parliament. But the issue is mostly here. I think CORD didn't put in my own opinion, a lot of effort to make sure that these things are sorted out. And why was that happening? I think it was calculated to make sure that you harvest enough from your effort. What I was saying, it's not just building momentum on the issue of on Wednesday's rally, but the issue of IEBC has been well calculated, in my opinion, by the CORD side to make sure that, one, someone takes credit for the reforms. And again, this is the context that was there in 2007, that one side was saying, let's have reforms, and the other side was saying, no, at the end of the day, you ended up with none, and we ended up with the post-election violence. It's the same thing that we're likely to go through, that people want to take credit for the reforms that will be made. And therefore, if it seems that CORD is going to take credit of the reforms in the judiciary, or the reforms, the necessary reforms in regards to the political party